welcome. This is CDR. First time back here in Bristol after many years of distance. My name is Tony Wachiku, and for the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to be talking to a man like Bruce. Give it up. Cool. So, how are you, sir?
I'm great, mate. What a cracking bunch of tunes. Serious talent in the room. It's really lovely to hear. Really nice. I'm good.
Cool. So most of those snares are all right, aren't they?
Yeah.
No dodgy in the snare. No, that's fine. No, also what's really interesting as well, because this is the first CDR session we've done in Bristol for a while, like I said. But also, a lot of that music has been made during COVID, right? So people have been really busy at home. So a couple of questions. Some people asked, is there going to be a playlist? So usually what happens is we usually project the name of the artist and track name, but we couldn't do that today for technical reasons. But next time we're here, it'll be sorted. But what we'll definitely do is we'll be, sharing the music with you sometime in the future. So just keep in touch with us, and we'll let you know. But to all the producers that brought submitted tracks, thank you very much. You'll be hearing from us very soon. But in the meantime, we're here to talk with Bruce, an amazing producer, DJ, who smashed it over the summer, particularly at Deck Mental, I hear. Yeah?
Yeah.
Certain antics, last-minute tune business. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. Basically, I assumed because of COVID that there would be dropouts at selectors in Croatia, so I went along and I brought my records with me, assuming that someone would drop out. And funnily enough, I get a call as coming from the airport that John Talbot couldn't make it because of COVID. I don't know. I'm sure. I think I've spoken to quite a few people in the room about this already. So sorry for repeating myself. But basically, I get a call from my agent while I'm in the taxi from the airport, and my mate has the initiative to start recording the phone call, and he doesn't tell me until I get back to the hotel. And he goes, "Yeah, mate, I got a recording of you talking to your agent, going like." No, sound. No, we'll just work out a fee later. No, it's cool. Yeah, just tonight, yeah? Oh, sound. So I thought that'd be funny to play at the start of my set with a load of noise, because I'm definitely not John Talbot. So I just to make it clear to everyone. But then I thought it might be funny to confuse them a bit more by getting on the mic and telling them, "Hi, I'm John Talbot." And people genuinely thought I was John Talbot. But it was fine. It was good fun. I think there's a lot to be said for just being optimistic and bringing your USB and your records with you.
Exactly, and seizing the moment, right? Which is what you did. And I think a lot of music, we forget that sometimes just in this age of social media preparedness. First of all, before we dive into hearing some of your amazing music and, chewing your ears with your production process, I want to know, what got you into making music, and what was the trigger that kind of you said to yourself, you know what, I'm going to take this whole music profession thing a bit more seriously?
It's hard to pin down a particular time. I've always been quite a deep feeler, and music for me has been the thing that kind of hits those resonances most. And I found myself quite troubled when trying to work out whether I wanted to pursue music at the end of secondary school. A lot of pressures, as I'm sure everyone has experienced, in one way or another, about where you kind of feel and sit with that, especially when it comes down to a sense of a career, that big scary word, career. Do you get defined by these tunes you're making? And I think that was a bit of a tricky thing. But when I actually really, after a bit of soul searching and working in shitty pub jobs, kind of realised that actually this is what I want, and it was about finding a crew. Yeah, I tell you what, that was it. It was finding a crew at uni. It was finding a crew of people that were and they, it was the first week of university when Ploy came up to me. Obviously he wasn't Ploy back then, he was Basic Audio. And he came up to me and was just like, "Oh, sick, that talk you did on Hassel Audio was really cool. I was going to do that if I didn't do Hot Flush." This is 2011. And he "Do you want to come to my room and we'll play records and that?" And then since then, we then started putting on nights, and in Bath, of all places, which actually was quite fun, and it was really formative. But it was all about, I think, the confidence and the kind of assurance, the self-assurance came from surrounding myself and making sure I was surrounding myself with like-minded people, and because it's fucking hard, as I'm sure you've all experienced, trying to find that confidence, trying to find that self-assurance. You know, when you're sitting there going, oh my God, I can't believe I'm still mixing down this tune. Send it to a mate and they go, yeah, I mean, it is a banger, mate. You know, like it is really good. So get on with it and just start doing something else. So it's you know, that finding the people was where I really...
So with that newfound confidence at that time, talk us through what it was like to have your first vinyl release and that kind of, you know, somebody else investing in your bangers.
Yeah. Last year of uni, I was just about being in Bath. I moved to Bristol and we started commuting. I was still living with Sam Ploy and a couple of other music heads, and we just basically got ourselves stuck into Bristol music. And I decided I wasn't leaving university without getting a release on a label I wanted to get a release on. Something that actually was quite alienating for people around me. I destroyed my relationship.
How'd you do that?
Just staying in my room all the time, and just being a bit like not being nice to be around, because I'm just there just swaying, thinking about music. And and I'm not to say that I don't recommend that. Like, that's not me saying that's what you should do. But for me, it was putting myself under that pressure, and then just basically getting an email back from Bev, saying, do you want to release tunes? And I was like, I mean, I was such a cantankerous little prick. I was just like, no, this isn't the right tune. You shouldn't be releasing this. And I was just actually saying no until my mates went, shut the fuck up. Like, this is Pev's asked to release your tune. Like, get on with it.
What label was that?
Liberty Sound, but it was like their backwards label, Danuas White-Ivor. Yeah. But yeah, it was nuts. It was amazing. It was really special.
So I guess you're happy, and that was, you know, one peg of confidence, you know, one step forward.
Yeah, I mean, the Hessel one came soon after, and funnily enough, like most people's first release, it kind of went under the radar. It's kind of strange how that happens. First releases is something that speak to Omar has a really good opinion on it. It's kind of the attitude, like Omar Batu. His attitude is that the first release is to get you confidence, like to make you feel like, shit, I've done the thing. This thing I've been working on that's literally like an extended limb of my body has now been cut off, and I'm like, it's in the real world. But now it's like it's like, oh my God, that's a thing that I can just appreciate. Wow, I've done that sound. That's no longer mine. It's everyone's to appreciate and enjoy, you know? And I think that feeling is then like, cool, I can do another one now. And yeah.
So to jump a little bit forward, so, you know, from, you know, that release to the Hessel Audio thing and a couple of others, you know, you embarked on a long player, right? Mm-hmm. So was that a conscious decision to go, you know what, I'm going to focus on enough of this kind of single releases, EPs or whatever, I want to focus on an album? Was that like a kind of a really, you know, confident decision to do that? Or was it just a case of just having a bunch of tunes and calling it an album?
I'm not sure. It was more just down to the fact that the Hessel guys asked me, do you fancy it? And I think I'm still am like really moved to be involved with anything with those guys. I think for them to instate that, to kind of inform that confidence in me was what I needed. Didn't need to take 2.5 years to write it though. That was maybe something if I could do it again.
But it's your debut release, you know, you have to kind of put usually, you know, the first record is usually the one you put your heart and soul into, right? Well, the second one as well, of course, for a lot of artists, but the first one's like your big baby in the world, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I am really happy with it. Like, I'm glad I took as long as I did in a way. Probably could have spent less time playing video games, but it was, you know, it happens. It came out, and I'm happy with it, so we're good.
So talk us through the 2.5 years of writing. I mean, how did you approach the writing of the album? Because it's quite varied in a good way. Was that obviously it was a conscious decision to make it varied, but is that something that was informed by the writing process, or was it something that was very strategic on your part? What's your thinking behind that?
I've always been a track-to-track producer. I write a song and I either finish it or abort it. I'm not one for writing tracks and sitting on them, really. That's only ever happened once. And that's not down to anything other than just, if I have a vision that I start with, then I'll pursue that until it turns into something else, or I lose sight of it. And for me, it was wanting to make sure that as a dance music album, which I think, in my opinion, a lot of people don't really do a very good job of, which is not like, you know, like I think a lot of people just basically they'll stick like 3 ambient tracks in it. It's like, well, no one dances to that, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I think it's making sure that there's the right sort of curvature, track to track, to make sure that you have got. I mean, what I basically really wanted was to have, if you pack the record, not being formatist about it, but like just the hypothetical reasons, if you had the record in your bag, you could bring the whole record with you, and you could potentially play a different tempo, a different vibe, and you could guarantee that record's getting played. You know, that was kind of the intention.
Cool. So let's hear something from that, just to spark your memory again, for just if I haven't heard it for the first time. So yeah, maybe Ion, maybe.
Eon, cool.
Eon, sorry.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, come on, bro. Spill the beans, man. How do you make it?
Say that again, sorry?
Spill the beans, man. How do you make it? Come on, break it down.
Oh man, I wrote this in like literally 2016. Well, it was actually originally a remix. Which a few of my tracks were. They were remixes that I sent back to the label, and they were like, well, this one in particular was for some wank like tech house thing in generally Ibiza based label, which I thought would be a lot of cash, and it wasn't. But it's given that they didn't want it, so I think I could see a penny. But no, he just turned around to me and was like, "Where's the vocal? Where's the fucking vocal? God, can't you hear it? Can't you hear it in the textures? Obviously, can't you hear the vocal?" He was obviously after something different. But it was. It starts with the chord. It starts with the chord. I mean, unfortunately, I can't show you the project file because for multiple reasons. But it starts with the was that chord there, which was, I think, I did something to a pad in the original stems of the original file of the project. But yeah, it's basically around that. I think for me, I built it around that kind of the heaviness and the melancholy, but also in the tension in that chord, and it was building around that. I wanted something that had, the bumped and had the space that moved in places. So it was just trial and error, but it came relatively easily actually for that track. It was the first track I wrote for the album as well. It was the track I sent over to Hessels, and they were like, "Right, do you want to write an album around this?" Which I did.
So in terms of the journey of the textures, I mean, you had the melancholic chord, and in terms of the other layers and textures, how were they introduced? How did you design those?
I usually write tracks from the start to the finish, and I'll obviously go back and touch on places. But in this case, it was with that chord, wanting then to have the space for that chord to be enjoyed, but there to be the momentum to know that that chord was going to be taking you somewhere else, rather than just sitting there. It was about mapping the kick drums and the percussion elements in that first section, and sitting there. And I do this a lot with tracks, like trying to make things feel natural and human, and not feel to sit to a particular grid. And like obviously everything is grid tight, it's all quantized, but like helping things move around. And basically, sitting and hearing the first ba-dum, and then just sitting there and waiting to feel like when you might want the next one, and it just takes a little while just going through it, and there's no right or wrong way of doing it, but like just basically taking a deep breath and getting the right mindset. And then from there, a drop into the kick drums, and then managed to get the sort of those sort of sounds. Sorry, that sucks so much.
I mean, we get it right. We get it right.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not going to do that again. And that was all. I think that was just a guitar, little bit from the original, just sped up and put phaser on it. But there's no magic. There's no made like mad tricks. It's just taking a sound, really appreciating it, giving it the time it needs to breathe, and then just before you get too comfortable with it, moving on to the next one. Yeah.
So essentially, it's about creating space and interest and making music that's not quote unquote predictable in that respect, apart from the banging kick drum.
Totally. But also tricking people with predictability.
Yeah. So when did you know it was finished? I mean, you said it was pretty straightforward to make it, and but when did you know it was finished? Because I think a lot of producers have a challenge in knowing when a track is finished. So in this case, when did you know that this is done?
Yeah.
No more tweaking, no more phasing.
Yeah. I don't really, I haven't really understood it when people I'm sure you're familiar with TJ Object and he documents on Instagram the amount of takes he takes on various different tracks and these things, and he has these long lists of things he wants to change on it. For me, it's not about getting it technically perfect. It's which is important for some people and some for not. But just for me, I feel it's more if something delivers the idea, if it delivers the vision of what you had initially, or what the thing you thought it could possibly be, and you may have played it out or seen a mate play it out, and you're right. For example, there's a bit we didn't quite get to when it got that, the big kind of. Oh, I nearly did it again. The synths in the middle, in the breakdown, and it basically is right. That needs to be more. It needs more welly. So I just basically added an octave to it, and I think once I did that, and then and it was. I think that was it.
And I guess you're happy with it, right?
That's one of my favorite tracks. Yeah.
One thing is really good to hear is the fact that it had a role to play in the world. It was supposed to be a remix, but it wasn't. But you literally thought, actually, I can repurpose it. Because I think a lot of the time, if any of you have done a remix and you've had a remix rejected, a lot of that time that can be, quite distressing, right? And because you kind of view the music as not being right, or something wrong about it. But the fact that, you repurposed it, I think is a testament to good music. Somebody else's opinion about something isn't necessarily the right one.
Totally, especially when you're trying to bring the world of creativity into a world of business, and it's sadly they do have to coexist, but in times like that you do have to break free and do your thing. Most
definitely. So in contrast to what we just heard, I wanted you to play one of the more ambient tracks. Can can we check one out and then?
Which one? Which one do you mean?
Is it
on the album?
Yes, please. Maybe the first. Well, you choose.
I mean, I don't think any of them are that ambient. Do Serotonin Levels Low? It's the softest one, probably.
Soft is good.
Okay, cool. Not particularly. This is a
so play the first track.
First track.
Yeah.
I mean that. Okay. If you think this is ambient, all right. We'll see. We'll see. Sorry.
So when I first heard that, I thought I had tinnitus.
Yeah. That's the trick. You do now.
Nicely.
Sorry, you're right. The intro is quite ambient. Sorry.
So to be clear,
yeah. Sorry,
I was referring to the ambience and the soundscapiness of the intro, right?
Yeah, fair enough, mate. My bad.
So.
Nobody ever plays that bit though. Like, remember that? It's like, where's the drop at? Come on.
Yeah, so it's so I thought, listening to the album, I thought it was not brave is not the right word, but I personally like music that takes people, of course, on a journey. But there's a sense of a sense of surprise, and I think for me, what's really great about your music is that there's lots of surprises. You're kind of taking people on this journey. It's a bit like, I don't know, going into the wilderness, and just when you think it's nice and safe and poof, you get hit by a kick drum, which sounds like a 909, but clearly not. It's a bit more metallic sounding. So in terms of your studio equipment and the equipment that you use to make this music, can you tell us the kind of tools that you've been using?
Yeah, it's not a particularly interesting answer. This was all on my 2011 MacBook. I was actually for this was a time when I was still rewiring Reason 4 through Pro Tools 9. So I learned on Reason 4 at school, was playing around that, playing literally at like the age of 14, 15. And then I've carried on using that, and then I went to uni and they taught me how to use Pro Tools, and then realised Pro Tools, there's just this, like, everything sounds really fucking sexy. Like, it just has this mad, like, sound to it. So I was rewiring Reason, which I knew to program into Pro Tools to then process the sound simultaneously. Before everything turned 64-bit and I had to do it. Now I do everything separately. I do use Reason 10 and into Pro Tools 14. But basically plugins and sampling. There's 2 Artful Dodger samples in there. Hopefully there aren't any licensing people in the crowd because I didn't clear those. And just basically lots of almost exclusively samples from records, just pin drop stuff.
But lots of sound design, right? You know, and layering. Right?
Sure.
So even though the equipment is, it's great, shouts to the Reason users in the building. A lot of your attention is on the sound design and layering, right? And the world that you create with these samples, right?
Yeah.
So
you can hear, any sound toy users can probably hear the processing, like the crystallizer I use a lot on this album. The crystallizer, Echo Boy. All the sounds, it was quite interesting. Ben UFO turned around to me and he said, it's really nice having all these bangers and they're so soft. And I was like, they're not soft. Well, hard. No fucking not. But listening back to it, they are, essentially I think that was an aesthetic I didn't realize I was going for. And using that sort of digital processing, there is a massive benefit to that. You do get a really nice, you can add edge to things. You can make things kind of sparkly, but at the end of the day, they do come across in this kind of, at least how I was using them anyway. Soft way.
Cool. Any questions you guys would like to ask? Or thoughts on what you've heard so far? Mesmerised? Okay, cool.
Yes,
so one at the back. So you've got 2 choices, right? If you're a big man, you'll come up to the front here and go on the mic, all the way from the back there, walking large. No, it's not. It's fine. It's large. Look at him. Come. Yes, give me a round of applause, man. Coming from the back. That's cool.
Hi, Joe. I was just going to say, for people potentially interested in getting started in sound design, heavy sound design-based music, are there any plugins or things that you might recommend people checking out to potentially get started in a sound design world that I think is normally quite complicated for people to assess and go, this is how I get started at something that doesn't really have a specific route, if you get one. Trying to does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, really good question.
Yeah,
I think a lot of focus is on because there's so much bloody choice, way more choice now than when I was writing this album in regards to the crazy amount of digital plugins you can buy. And there's also a lot of accessibility to a lot of hardware stuff, and that's great. But just don't spend too long thinking about what you're gonna get and how long you're gonna get at doing the thing. Just the reason why I'm confident and happy with making the sound designs that I do is because all the sounds I get and all the sounds that I basically fuck with are samples that I've made a point of sampling myself. So I know I'm kind of not really answering your question here, but the point is that if you make sure that your starting point is all sounds that you have sourced yourself, Vengeance kick drums, come in really handy, but or those sort of kick drum packs. I don't know if they're knocking about anymore as much, but basically, if you go through any records or any digital files you've got and go through and start sampling every little bits you can, you there from the very off have a personal signature awareness of this sound. I wouldn't then make, you go through, you make a big fat folder of all these different drum sounds, synth sounds, bass sounds, and then whatever sort of plugins you buy, you're from the very off, you've already got something cool sounding because it relates to you. You pick that sound out. You're curating your sound from the very beginning. Once you do that, plugin alliance are really good. Yeah, plugin alliance. Basically, wait until there's a deal comes around. I think they've got a Black Friday deal coming up. Yeah, plugin alliance. And get the mix and master combo. It's nuts. Seriously good compressors. All the Universal Audio stuff is amazing. That's what I'm on at the moment. I was on Sound Toys. Sound Toys are really handy, but you can you can rinse the crystallizer, which I definitely have done. Plugin alliance.
Thank you.
Great question. Cool. Cool. Anyone else? Cool. Come forth.
Yeah, I will do. Thank you. So I don't produce music, so this is more of a conceptual question.
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't. Not really.
Okay. All right.
So something that I noticed when I first got to know your music was that it has quite obvious sonic characteristics. So I don't mean this as a criticism, but the kind of like we listened to in the last track, where it drops from quietness to this kind of explosive noise. It has whistle noise, like sort of glass shattering, that sort of thing. There are quite recognisable aspects to the music that you produce, and I'm interested in how you feel that the recognisableness of your music contributes to its success, contributes to like your perception of what it is that you're doing. Do you feel that I have to make music that has these characteristics in it for people to recognise it as my own? And do I have to produce music that has these kinds of characteristics for it to be successful? I'm interested in how you feel about that, because I feel like there are things about what you do which distinguish it from other people's music.
Yeah, that's another great question. I can't actually remember a time of ever thinking about that. I don't think I ever think about whether stuff is recognizable. If anything, it's about trying to make sure the next thing I do doesn't sound like the last thing. I reckon that's probably down to the fact that I've just always put so much emphasis on the vision in my head and making sure that I realize that to the best of my ability. And I think in that process, there'll come moments and there'll come times when I want something, and I'll realize something in that respect. It's kind of similar to what I was saying about the sampling thing. Everybody's got their own voice. Everybody's got their own thing. You might feel like your voice isn't as loud as other people's, but that has nothing to do with whether that's make its relevance. Like, you're the person sitting there at the computer. This is your world. Like, fulfill it. And the visions you have and the ideas you have, if you just stay true to them and try your best not to be too influenced or drawn from the path of that in any particular way, before you know it, you're going to have a signature sound. And it's that sort of stuff. It's quite interesting as a listener. It's almost the first thing that comes to mind. But as a producer, it should be the last thing on your mind, in my opinion.
Thank you. Great question. Cool. All right. So, from the past to pastures new, you've got something for us to listen that you're working on, right?
I've got I could show them the project file, something that's released, or shall I or shall I show you something brand new?
You know what? What do you think? Oh, new. Should we do new? Yeah? Okay, cool.
Oh, shit.
The people have spoken.
Okay. Right, so this is actually... I can't believe I'm doing this. This is a completely new project that started. It's going to be under Bruce, but it's basically...
How relevant? This is the best place to...
Yeah,
it's all about works in progress,
Yeah,
right?
true. I was just hoping to keep it a bit more secret than that. But it's fine. Should I just play it, or should I do...
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so... I'm just going to play it. One sec. Yeah. I'm going to be watching Soulseek for the next few weeks. If I see any like dodgy rips of videos and shit.
Not at all.
No. I've learned the weight is worth it, to feel your gaze on me. It often takes a while before you soften, letting fingers and our eyes meet. A different kind of grace, I swear. I'm sure your friends agree. Given the chance, I'd throw away my cool and do everything that I could to make you feel pretty. But I'm just happy here with you to do the things you wanna do. We got plenty time to lose, let's have them both, no need to choose. Somewhere to do us good because we want, not cause we should. Tempting smiles though we could, no strings attached to walks in woods. Just happy here with you to do the things you wanna do. Got plenty time to lose, let's do them both, no need to choose. If it's time you go to bed, just say bye and to hold my head. Maybe I'll read to you, then tuck you in and tie my shoes. I'm happy here with you to do the things you wanna do. Got plenty time to lose, let's have them both, no need to choose. Maybe a little luck the tension calm and stuck, 'cause sometimes it's just really, really nice to forget. The weight is worth it for hot cocoa rosy. You say the music has to come with the words, but these words for me come so easily. Strange prickle in your sheets, the sacred proceeds. And every time we kiss, there is another apple to crush into pieces. I'm just happy here with you to do the things you wanna do. We got plenty time to lose, let's have them both, no need to choose. Somewhere to do us good because we want, not because we should. Tempting smiles though we could, no strings attached to walks and rules. Just happy here with you to do the things you wanna do. Got plenty time to lose, let's do them both, no need to choose. If it's time you go to bed, just say bye and to hold my head. Maybe I'll read to you the document and tie my shoes. I'm happy here with you to do the things you wanna do. Got plenty time to lose, let's have them both, no need to choose. Maybe a little luck, we let the tension come unstuck, 'cause sometimes it's just really, really, really. I won't expect it of you, I will never rush you, but if you want to taste me, slowly I'll let you. I'll never ask you anything from you, and trust in me is everything. I want you.
Thank you for sharing that, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, wasn't expecting that.
That's my thing.
No, that's really, really beautiful. Obviously, my first impression is, fantastic vocalist. I really enjoyed listening to the intimacy of the vocal so far. I know it's still a work in progress and stuff, but, I think it works the way it works so far. But also I really like the subtleness of the reverb that you used in certain, very subtle reverb, almost like not spring reverb, but it's very metallic sounding in places, right?
Yeah, it is a spring reverb.
And, a little cheeky crystallizer there, every software I heard. But yeah, it's...
Thank you, mate. Cheers. Thank you.
So what's the story, man? Yeah.
The song or the project? Or both?
Both, man. Come on.
Well, the project is basically... I'm singing on tracks now. So I'm going to... Basically, which is exciting. Yeah.
Stop it, man.
Yeah, no, you guys stop it.
What? What?
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah. Cheers,
Look
mate.
at you.
Oh, I'm actually embarrassed.
Stop it. Look at you, cloak and dagger business. Yeah. Gosh. Wow. Amazing. Go for it. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. I've always wanted to try and still tell stories with music, and there's only so much in message you can hide behind kick drums. I think that I wanted to give things a narrative, but I wanted to maintain... I mean, that track actually has got the least sound designy stuff in it. A lot of the other tracks have more typical for me sound designy shit, but like I want the vocals to lead everything. So yeah, just telling stories. Like that song's about seeing someone and wanting to show them that I respect, you know, their space and what they want to do. But if they do want to fuck, then I'm here. So that was the vibes, you know. So, I think I'm sure people can relate to that. Yeah. So I think yeah, just seeing where it goes. I'm just trying to write as many tracks like that as possible. Yeah.
So is that going to be a Bruce thing or something new?
I think Bruce, yeah, that makes sense. I think that track maybe not so much, but the other ones definitely, like, they're more, you can hear, as, you know, Tim nicely said, that the kind of sound designy Bruciness. So, yeah.
And where you're at with in terms of the trajectory, where you're at in terms of the tracks that you've written and...
Well, I've written this many, so that many. Oh, cheers, mate. Nice one. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've written that many there, and I've got about 4 more in the works. I don't know. We'll see. It's the sort of thing where, you know, it's enough for an album, but it doesn't make sense as an album yet. It's just been me writing stories of my experiences. So we'll see what happens. But
so there's more vocal tracks on
it's all vocal. Like it's all just like yeah. There's a couple with less vocals, some with more. So yeah.
Are you concerned about how people will not necessarily care that there's obviously a new layer to what you're doing, but you're concerned that you may not alienate, but people will be surprised of this, not new, you know, this, you're releasing your voice into the world, which is obviously fantastic. That's going to be amazing. People are going to really appreciate that. But do you think you might alienate some of the people who just want some bangers?
I mean, if I do, yeah, literally, yeah. I mean, like, no, with all due respect, no, I shouldn't be like that. The point is, I'm going to be making dance floor tracks still. You know, like, there's no way I can. I mean, I've got enough friends who, yeah, said I've show this to, and it's like, you better not stop making dance music, which, you know, that would be fine. So there's not really an issue. I think it's more down to, yeah, just basically. I don't know. It's loads of producers. I better be quick because there's loads of producers singing on tracks. So I've got to make sure if I can get in there.
No, the reason I ask that is because I think that one of the, you know, dilemmas of producers who are prolific, you know, particularly if you sing, is you know, one method people used to do is to compartmentalize. So you've got one pseudonym for one kind of music and another one. Do you know what I mean? That's the easiest way to delineate stuff. And it makes it easier, right? So, but it's always been a challenge traditionally to be an artist in a traditional sense, particularly with music that's been driven by the dance floor, first and foremost, right?
Sure.
So that's why I was asking that question.
Yeah,
and
fair
it's
enough.
And it's good to know that you're just, you know, you're fronting it as yourself, and you know, your audience, you know, have to follow you, and that's, in my opinion, the way it should be.
Totally. I also, the more I've done this, the more I've tried to reject. When it comes to my work and where I am and all the stuff I really like, I think the more barriers and the places and the pots and, you know, things you put stuff in, the more stuff it kind of like starts looking in on itself and just doesn't get any good. Like, I think when it comes to pop music especially, like, I think everybody should always, anyone who says they're not into pop, I don't really understand. I don't really get that. I think everything we enjoy, and it comes from somewhere, from our very beginning and experiences of music comes from pop and that sort of stuff. So I would hopefully feel that if anybody was into what I do, they'd see the trajectory and into kind of looking back into where we might, you know, tropes and understandings of music we all might appreciate, and hopefully we can start, you know, breaking down these walls and, you know, playing. I mean, I'd love the idea of potentially playing that out at, you know, the end of a night, you know, that sort of thing.
It's definitely possible. Definitely possible.
Yeah. So
definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. Exactly.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. You're all so nice. Thank you. Yeah, I'm still blown away. In a good way, in a really good way. So I think what has been, it feels to me that with music, with you, it feels really fluid, and it feels to me that you're very connected with the music that you make, the sounds that you craft, and clearly the songs that you write. You know, are there any aspects of songwriting, producing that you find challenging?
And if so, how do you typically overcome those things?
Yeah, mix downs. I mean, it's that's been the biggest thing in my writing career, is actually technically being technical about stuff. I've been mates with Omar Batu for a long time, and that guy is like, his tunes are just hard as nails, and they always have. He's always had a really good ear for, just understanding the engineering behind things. It's not something that really comes naturally to me. For me, it's about, as I've been saying, it's all about the art and pursuing the vision and reality. Like, there's only so many times you can like stuff a fucking Foley sound of dropping a tin can before you actually need to start compressing it, or like, that sort of stuff. So it's. Yeah, for me, it's learning a lot recently, collaborating with people, and then sharing, like, specifically Lurker. I did a collab. I got a collab with him coming out soon, and he's like, the stuff he's shown me has been really beneficial. But like, it's realizing that like that you actually, the less you do when it comes to processing sound is actually, if your sounds are strong enough, if your sounds are cool enough, you don't actually really need to do all that stuff to it. And I've only recently worked that out. So yeah, it's, for any of you out there worrying about mix downs, like, firstly, it's actually not that much of a big deal. If your tune's cool, that's all that matters. You shouldn't worry about too much mixing stuff down. And secondly, if it is stressing you out, like, you can always learn more. So just finish the track and do better next time.
Thank you. Cool. A couple more questions from you guys, if you want to. Cool. Come through. Who are you then?
Oh, Daniel.
Hi, Larry. Are you going to perform that stuff live?
Yeah, probably. Drop the mic, love that.
Shout to Rackham, everyone. You read Rackham?
Yeah, nice one, Red Rackham. Yeah. That's all I'm telling you for now. Sounds. God, one legend after another. Sound.
I was just going to ask, there's like an existential thing with artists, like with a separation between, in some ways, between us at home and then the public face. So do you see that, is there a separation between Larry and Bruce? And I was going to ask that question before you played your vocal track, so now I feel like maybe there's two things that are sort of doing this, but yeah, is that important even, or is that even your reality?
Yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Nice one, Jim. Yeah, it's really important to me. It's something that all my favourite artists are ones that specialise in really disassociative music, so Aphex Twin, Actress, only two that come to mind at the moment, but people that basically get involved in lots of drugs or just like make music that feels like it's completely otherworldly, and it's strange that therefore I make stuff that is really not, like, it's all quite earnest. And that's something that I've struggled with a little bit, because I've tried to make tracks that feel like they're kind of like drifting away, and they do feel like that kind of weird disassociative experience, but I always come back to making it quite earnest and quite, quite. But it's just who I can't really move away from my number one goal in life as Larry, which is trying to make sure I'm being authentic all the time. Not too authentic, because sometimes it's a bit much, but just authentic enough to be real. And I think that has, over time, that really has just become like Larry, Bruce. It's kind of the same thing. It's just keeping all the ideas and the visions you have as real as possible, and trying to articulate those as much as possible. And yeah, that's what it's about, in my opinion.
Cool. Couple more. Cool. Come through, man.
So some of the tracks, especially in the album you were playing to begin with, are like pretty left field when it comes to dance floor music. And I was wondering, do you ever feel a conflict between the more experimental ideas and then the more tried and tested ideas that work for a dance floor that make people dance, and mixing that with the more experimental sounds, how does that work out?
Yeah, good question. It was something that in the start, when I started writing music, was a big thing. There was someone I sent music back and forth. Lucky to have a community of people I sent you music to, but specifically Kit Seymour, who's writing music now. He had a thing out on the Time Dance compilation, and he used to do his nutting how I'd send him a track that was just like all over the place. It had a kick drum in it. It kind of went places, and he was like, "Yeah, it's cool here, and then it does this. Why the fuck does it do that?" And it was for a while I was trying to work out my place with dance music. But over time, I realized the importance of maintaining assets and commitments to certain things in electronic music. And for me, the big one of that is the hardcore continuum. I'm not an expert on it, so maybe I shouldn't be really talking about it in this sort of platform. But my point being, it's basically the attitude of, who wrote Energy? Simon Reynolds. Energy Flash, Simon Reynolds. Check it out, it's an amazing book. It basically talks about how the beginning of all UK power of the kind of basically the energy created through the beginning of acid house and rave has been an explosion of a completely continuum, compulsive, like not compulsive, but fully like continuum of energy from acid house to jungle, to hardcore, to jungle, to drum and bass, to garage, to dubstep, all that sort of stuff, and maintaining. Because for me, I've realised that is what I love. Like for me, it's realising the power and energy of the bass face and the gun fingers, essentially. And it's that, and I think that is what excites me and will always excite me in regards to what I do. So I think that really is what grounds me, and I have that, and also the love for like dance floor etiquette and attitudes, the idea of together as one, without getting too spiritual about it, the idea of us being on Sonda Somatic, the name of the album, is kind of it's kind of words around that. It's the idea that we're all feeling the same thing through being physical in one space, and that sense of like oneness is together. So those two attitudes are what inform and kind of keep my ideas aligned. That is quite a academic attitude and quite a theory-based attitude, but that's what works for me, and that's what keeps my ideas straight, and like generally keeps them kind of committed to making stuff for dance floors. I am all for naughty DJ tools that like don't do anything except for roll, and I think you can really create a world with that sort of stuff. So, and I think there will always be some sort of conflict between the quite headsy experimental stuff and the like naughty dance floor ready stuff, and I think it's really important that those worlds don't start sneering at each other and start looking at each other like, sort of thing, but it's totally natural. It's totally natural that sort of stuff works. I think you should just try, I think, finding a natural balance in those two, however works for you. But also the massive part of that comes from when you sit down to start writing music. You start going, right, I want to make something at 140, or I want to start making a grime track, or I want to start making a techno track. I feel like if you start on that sort of basis, you're already putting yourself you're giving yourself walls, you're already containing yourself. And limitations are good, but when it comes to the kind of world you're trying to write for, if you stick to, like, as I said, keep saying, broken record, but if you stick to the ideas and what the feeling you experienced, the feeling you had in the club, and whether that be a moment if it's just driving fucking kick drums, nothing else, or that weird ambient trancey moment that was amazing, if you just focus on that, the function and the form will come together, and I think that it's it takes you much better places.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. You're welcome. Good question.
There was one more. Where's the guy gone? Yeah, come through, man.
Yes, Chavs, you good, mate?
So if you're not feeling creative and you've got to finish tracks for like a deadline, or you're just sitting on them for a while and you can't get into that moment, what do you do to make yourself feel creative? Because often I find myself in a block and I'm like, I want to make music, but I'm tired, or like, I just can't find the creative drive. Especially through COVID, there's been like no influence from like outside sources. I'm a very like social person, so for me it was like really hard to make music without having influence through life, essentially.
Yeah, good question. Two things I do. First one is get the blood pumping, whatever you need to do. Whether you're going for a run or going fucking like just whatever, literally anything. Like, I think it's like easy for me to say in regards to, as an able person to be able to go and do that, but like anything that gets basically energy pumping around your body, even eating a good meal, or like cooking something, like, and getting involved in something creative that isn't basically anything to do with music. Go and do that. If that doesn't work, then, because usually I'll do that and then I'll be like, and then the idea will just ping into my head and it'll just be like, wow, where the fuck did that come from? Like, I'm like literally so far away from my laptop now, race home, you know, and then, like, you know, and that sort of thing. But like, if you doesn't do that, then just go and listen to something that doesn't have a motive, or like has a motive response that has nothing to do with dance music. Yeah. I think for me, sometimes getting the Spotify playlist out, finding tracks that are emotive, that have anything to do with like dancing. They're very much to do, or just being in a space of a dance floor, having a motive experience, like, or like going to watch a film at least, you know, that has some sort of romantic, emotional sense. I think we often put ourselves in boxes of trying to, in kind of relation to the last question, like trying to fit a certain agenda or do a certain set of things. And in reality, everything that we need is there. We just need to go at it from a different angle and most importantly, get out of the room that you're working in. Yeah. Do something else.
Yeah, fair play.
Thank you.
Good luck.
So what can we expect from you in the next few months?
I've got a record coming out, as I mentioned, with Lurker, as under new project XRA. I would have played some of that tonight, but it's not the same if Ben isn't here. So I'm quite excited about that. And then playing a few shows. Going to be spending a lot of time finishing off that project. Yeah.
You've got a deadline for yourself for the
well, the new deadline is the most recent one is end of October. To try and get all the tracks done and then get to a label and start dealing with the other bullshit, like actually, like, you know, what I'm gonna wear when I'm on stage and shit like that. So we'll get there though.
Bruce, this has been amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks so much. Man. Thanks so much for coming, guys. Cheers. And thank you, Tony, as well, mate. Thank you, man. Really appreciate it, mate. Bye-bye. Thank you. And the rest of the team, the rest of the CDR team, and the rest of Strange Brew as well. Thank you for making it happen. Cheers.